And today we've got a unique and interesting program today with the Spanish Trade Commissioner in Miami, Francisco Javier Garzón Morales. He has a degree in economics from the Universidad Complutense de Madrid and is the economist and trade expert for the government of Spain. And he has held many different responsibilities in the Trade Commission of Spain, but assistant director and presidential advisor in the National Commission on Markets and Competition, focused on the telecommunication and audiovisual sectors. He was managing director of ICEX España Exportación e Inversiones, the Spanish Agency for Trade Promotion and Investment Attraction, and held the position of Trade Commissioner in the embassies of Spain in Brazil and Mexico, and has now been in Miami for about 2 years, but feels like it's more like starting over, starting fresh.
Correct.
And I understand this is your first visit to Atlanta.
It is. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to welcome you here. And there will be some awkward turning back and forth because we're trying to do cameras and whatnot. So tell us first of all, just why you're here in Atlanta. What brought you here? We've got a great view here at the chamber, but you've been through the airport a few times before, but now it was time to build a relationship.
Well, Trevor, let me start by thanking you very much for the opportunity and thanking the Metro Atlanta Chamber and Tom. It's great to be here. Thank you all for your presence, and thank you everybody that are virtually attending. First things first, let's go Hawks.
That's right.
I was thrilled to see the game yesterday. Yesterday, I'm a big basketball fan myself, and I find it amazing. And now about my visit. As you know, the Trade Commissioner of Spain, roughly, you could say that I cover the Southeast from Miami. I cover 9 states from Texas to Florida and all the neighboring states. I go as far up north as Georgia and Tennessee. The Carolinas are not mine. So that's a pretty large footprint. I should be traveling a lot. I haven't been able to. As you said, I've been here for about 2 years. One of them has been in the midst of the pandemic, so I'm starting over. I only started traveling again about 6 weeks ago, and this is my first trip to Atlanta, and it's great to be here. What brings me here? My job is to be able to help Spanish companies establish themselves here or sell their goods and products here, and also to attract investment to Spain. And to be able to do that, I have to know the ecosystem. I have to know the companies. I have to know the institutions, and I have to know the media. I have to build those connections to be able to be helpful, and that's what really brings me here for the first time. And I hope to start building these strong connections and take care of them moving forward.
Well, I know you're probably still evaluating this, but what is the Spanish presence like here in Georgia? I have to confess, probably through my own ignorance, but we don't write about Spain that much, to be honest with you. We don't. I think maybe that's a testament to the fact that there's so many companies embedded doing their business without making a lot of noise. That's maybe my suspicion as to why we don't hear as much about what's going on, but it seems to me that there are some major companies operating here. Obviously, a lot of trade and agriculture and other goods. But based on your current knowledge, where's the level of Spain-Georgia interaction as far as you can see it?
I believe it's pretty strong. Probably stronger in other states, larger states. But I think it's significant enough. Maybe not some of the large blockbusters, not present here, maybe present in neighboring states. But going back to our records, around 35 Spanish companies in several sectors, value-added sectors, technology, engineering, some very, very interesting companies. Some of them are pretty large worldwide, consulting and engineering companies that are already present here in Atlanta. And you probably know, I'm sure you know, and we'll probably talk about that. Spanish contractors are pretty big, and some of them are already present and are already winning contracts here in Georgia, and from the Department of Transport. So they're interested in the state, they're interested in the city, and we are really interested in helping them doing business here. So, and what I find really, really interesting is that the presence that we already have, I believe it matches the priorities of the city and the state, because we're talking about smart cities, we're talking about energy, and I believe that's the way to build a strong relationship, and we'll try to be part of that.
Yes, for sure. You mentioned the construction and infrastructure sector. I mean, I know that's one where Spanish companies are extremely strong. Renewable energy, I know, is a strong area. There's going to be a lot of, fingers crossed, whichever way you turn, government investment into infrastructure in the U.S. if it can ever get through Congress. That's the plan anyway. So do you see that as a particular opportunity for Spanish companies, especially those that have become sort of embedded in the ecosystem already?
I believe so. If you look at the priorities of the federal administration, they really match the capabilities and the knowledge of Spanish companies in general. You're talking about environmental issues, you're talking about infrastructure of any kind, you're talking about water, you're talking about energy and renewables. All of that is in the American Jobs Plan, and although we all know it still has a lot of hurdles to pass to become a reality, but the priorities are there, and those I believe are not going to change. And I believe, like I told you when I was speaking about the Spanish companies already here in Atlanta, I believe that the match between the priorities and what Spanish companies can bring to the table is almost perfect. So I do think there is a lot of opportunity.
Georgia's made a lot of noise in the electric vehicle sector as well, because we have the big Korean battery plant that's investing $2.6 billion and more up in northern part of Georgia now that all the conflicts around that have cleared, and it looks like it's cleared to go. I wonder, do Spanish companies have certain platforms or battery systems, or are there certain suppliers in that sector that would make sense to look at Georgia?
There are many companies interested in that field. Of course, the automobile sector in Spain is pretty big. There are many tier 1, tier 2 Spanish companies all over the world, also here in the States. And there are many U.S. companies based in Spain in this sector. So the relationship is very strong. Talking about electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle, chargers. I mean, this is the name of the game right now when you talk about mobility. And of course, there's a good number of Spanish companies working in this, and some of them are even present in the States. So I believe that is one of the specific sectors where we can find common interests.
So I mean, obviously over the past few years, the U.S. and Europe have not had the most amicable of trading relationships. There's been a lot of talk, right? How has Spain been affected? I mean, it seems that Spain has kept somewhat of a low profile, but there have obviously been ways that Spanish companies must have been affected by tariffs.
We have been affected. Yeah, we have been affected.
And I'm also thinking of digital services as well, which is an area where you're strong. And I know there's some recent developments on that I'd like you to address.
Yeah, well, there have been many different, let's say, conflicts. Maybe the two main ones would be, there are several others, but the two main ones will be the Airbus-Boeing conflict, and will be the digital services tax. Regarding the retaliatory tariffs back and forth between the U.S. and the European Union within the Boeing-Airbus issues, I mean, the Spanish government is part of the Airbus consortium. Some of the tariffs were targeted to Spanish products, and they were affected. We're talking about wine, we're talking about olive oil, and the exports from Spain over the past year. Although with the pandemic, it's not really easy to figure out how it has really affected. But if you look at the figures from the time the tariffs were began in October 2019 and to the beginning of the pandemic, you can really tell there was an effect. and in several other goods. The good news is that right now, after almost 2 years, there's an agreement to discuss a new architecture of the support system to the aeronautic sector, and thus the agreement is to stop these retaliatory tariffs for at least during 5 years. So we're in good shape right now. After they were in standby for a few months until this agreement was in place. So we're happy to say that that's cleared and we can focus on what brings us together. Talking about the digital services tax also, there are several other countries involved and also the European Union. There were some goods targeted and some tariffs imposed and immediately in standby. So we're for 180 days. So we have that time to cooperate and to find an international approach to taxation to international companies, and that is what we're doing right now. Just to let you know that from our view, from the Spanish point of view,
so good.
The digital services tax in Spain is not retroactive. It is not extraterritorial, and it's not discriminatory. So from our point of view, there is no ground for the tariffs, but we understand that the U.S. authorities do have to do their job. But the good news is that right now we're in the middle of conversations, and I'm really hopeful that this will have a happy ending too. So we can focus on what we can do together and not in the differences. And I believe that's a win-win situation.
Yeah. Well, we talked about U.S. government spending, but we haven't talked about the Spanish recovery plan. I wonder if you could lay out what's being planned. I looked at some of the sectors, and it's some of the things we talked about: small and medium-sized enterprise digitization, 5G roadmap, digital skills, connected mobility. All seems to be connected to technology and digitization.
I believe we're very much aligned, and that has to be part of the Spanish recovery and resilience program. As you know, it just was approved by the European Union because a good part of the funding comes from the European Union, and we're focusing precisely on what you said: renewables and environment and energy efficiency, digitalization of government, of businesses, SMEs. There are some structural reforms also involved in this process, like labor market and pensions reform, with the view to bring more flexibility to the table. And I believe that this is also an opportunity both to work together, and I'm convinced there's also going to be opportunities for U.S. companies in this environment over the next coming years.
It also seems like it dovetails really well with what's being done here in Atlanta, especially with connecting to Spain, because as John will tell you, I'm sure, the Smart City Expo, which was born in Barcelona, but Atlanta is the host for the U.S. and maybe even North American version of that, and we had a few instances of it before the pandemic hit and shut everything down. But also the GSM conference was in Barcelona, the big mobility summit. So do you see a particular link with Atlanta when it comes to mobility and internet companies?
I do. When we talk about smart cities and different verticals within that concept, we talk about, for instance, about mobility and many others. I believe that technology in general brings us together, and I am learning that Atlanta is a thriving tech hub, and I'm happy to say that in Spain you can find several of them. Actually, Spain is the only European country that has 2 cities among the top 10 tech startup cities in Europe, which are Barcelona and Madrid. And there are many things going on, and I believe that the connection between Atlanta and Georgia and the South in general and Spain has a lot of meaning, and we have to build that bridge between both sides of the Atlantic. And if a company from Atlanta wants to scale in Europe, why not through Spain? It should be through Spain. Spain is the gateway to Europe.
Well, I'll give you that softball pitch later toward the end. But no, I did want to ask you. You mentioned building the bridge, right? And that bridge, increasingly, maybe I'm a little biased because I've been writing about this a lot, but is financial technology. We've seen it become a real calling card for Atlanta overseas. This week, your visit coincides with the major FinTech South conference that I think will have a few thousand people from all over the world. I listened in on many Latin American fintechs yesterday on the world stage that they had. I know Spain has a strong banking sector, obviously well entrenched in Latin America as well. Also, you have your own fintech advantages. So I wonder if you could just talk about that sector in Spain in particular, and maybe some innovations that are happening in those tech hubs, and whether we can better link those.
Fintech is one of the, when we're talking about technology, is one of the hotspots also in Spain. Spain ranks 5th, 6th in number of fintech companies in the world. So there's a lot of activity going on in different segments, mostly investment and crowd lending and neo banking. So there's a lot going on. There are several companies in Spain, fintech companies, that they're in their internationalization process. Mainly because of you said the Spanish banks are strong in Latin America. Their first focus, it's only natural that it is Latin America, but they also have an eye on what's going on in Southern U.S. and I believe there is also ground for cooperation in that field.
Perfect. Yeah, well, you've been posted, and we talked about this before, so I'm not catching you off guard here, but you've been posted in the 2 biggest economies in Latin America, Brazil, Mexico. Now you're in Miami, which is obviously an unrivaled Latin America hub city. I wonder, can you comment on how Atlanta is viewed from those vantage points, and whether Atlanta has its own arguments to become a connector between Latin America and the broader U.S. economy? I told you I've been on some trade missions with the political leaders here who've said, we want to be your second, your second place after Miami, because we know we can't rival Miami. But there are already some big major Latin American companies here that many people don't know about. There's a huge growing Latin American Hispanic population, over 10% of Georgia's population now. It's the fastest growing segment of the population. So where do you see Atlanta positioning itself that way? It's good to hear John talk about it, but it's better to get an outside perspective.
Well, as you mentioned, if you're talking about Latin America, you have strong rivals. There's no doubt. And I'm based in Miami, so that's obvious. But I believe that your positioning is global, and that includes, of course, Latin America, and I believe I am, and people like me, part of the story of letting our companies know what is going on here, and this hub is as attractive as many others, and probably more attractive than many. And doing business here connects you globally and with the whole of the U.S. So I believe that should be your pitch.
Okay. We'll take that
of course, that includes the Latin American companies, and that includes. I mean, I cannot speak for Latin American companies, but I have, as you mentioned, spent 9 years of my life working in 2 Latin American postings, and I can, to a certain extent, talking on behalf of Spanish companies, and I believe my goal, my job here is to be your ambassador, and let Spanish companies know what Atlanta, what Georgia has to offer.
Great. Well, you got the right people here. So, tell us about education. This is one thing that we sort of in Atlanta, I could see this as an export, right? We have lots of hundreds of thousands of foreign students coming to the U.S. every year. I think it's in the millions now, tens of thousands in Georgia. I think it's almost 20,000 now, maybe more. But Atlanta itself is home to a massive number of universities with 250,000 students. It's a huge industry. You know, we say it that way because of the economic spillover effects. And international education has become an export. Spain is obviously a world leader in that. But then I'm sure with the pandemic, things are tenuous at the moment. So do you see it that way? Do you see study abroad from the U.S. In an economic lens at all? Of course, there's cultural and linguistic connections that are forged, but is that something that's in your purview? And where does that stand right now?
Of course it is. And we see that as a cultural industry.
Yeah.
And of course it involves culture, but it also and involves the universities, schools, but it also involves business. And it helps you build a brand and let everybody know what the good things that Spain has to offer. Right. And many times that starts with education. So we're really involved in that. And actually we run from my office our Study in Spain program for the US. And we work, we attend trade shows like, I don't know, NAFSA, ACFU, NACAC, and we're very present and work with US universities and with Spanish universities trying to make that connection and to take US students to Spain. Actually, before the pandemic, Spain was, depending on the year, second or third destination, study abroad destination in Europe for US students. First, of course, the UK, and second, Spain or Italy. So as a market, it is very important for us. But I'm not only thinking about the economic point of view, but the image and the perception and the spillover effects that has afterwards, which are very important for us.
I really think that's, I mean, I think people have acknowledged it obviously, but it's an untapped area of potential for Atlanta as well. How do you capitalize, you know, on the brand that's built and on the connections that are made while someone is studying here? Sometimes it pays off when they go back home and start a company and they're looking at a U.S. hub. Where are they going to pick? Somewhere where they already know, most likely. But I think that could be structured in a better way potentially. And it sounds like you have some experience with that. I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to open it up to the audience here. Those that ask questions here, I'm going to repeat for the folks on the call, and then vice versa. If people are asking through the chat, I'll read it out loud so y'all will hear it. Hopefully, we'll get some remote questions as well. Y'all bring them on, put them in the chat function. We have someone monitoring it in case I miss it. So I think we've already got some stuff in there. So I wanted to ask you about, well, first of all, Spain's open for travel, right? We can go?
Yeah, well, as of today.
As of today,
actually.
Okay, good. So I'll go buy my plane ticket right after this.
Please do. you know, Spain is a tourism powerhouse.
Oh, yes.
And it brings a lot to our economy. And to our community, and we're really hoping to see that coming back as soon as possible. Yeah,
well, we can't wait to get there. I don't think anyone ever comes back from Spain saying, I had a terrible time.
Good to hear that.
So I want to talk about agriculture. We're in Georgia, we're a big agricultural state. Obviously, Spain is huge in that as well. You mentioned some of the sectors that have been hit earlier on, but where do you see complementary sectors or crops or trade items that we could better exchange, or even on the technical side, are there ways that we could help each other?
Actually, where I see more opportunities is in technology related to agriculture. You know that when you talk about fruits and vegetables, Spain is the greenhouse of Europe, and that is because of technology. Of course, the weather conditions, the climate have a lot to do with that. Right. But we have developed the technology to be able to have several crops during the year with the different kinds of products and vegetables and fruits. And I have already seen US companies partnering up with Spanish companies and importing the technology.
Wow.
And making the investment in greenhouses with Spanish technology in Florida, for instance. So why not in Georgia?
Right.
Why not improve the efficiency of your agriculture, where greenhouses are suitable, with Spanish technology? So I leave you that idea, and then we can develop that
we'll follow up
in the future.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Does anybody here or on the call have any questions? I think we've got him for 15 more minutes, so we can use them all, or we can let him go early. But it's really up to y'all. I've asked most of my questions. But
I'm at your disposal.
If y'all have any, please come on. And pause after your question. I'm going to relay it to the audience as well.
Spanish cuisine is famous world over. Do you have any restaurant that really offers Spanish cuisine?
Well,
so the question is, do we have any restaurants that offer true Spanish cuisine? I guess here in Atlanta, are you asking? Or? Okay.
I'm sorry to say I don't know. I should have made my homework, and I could answer if you were asking about Miami, but I'll research that for you. But of course, the Spanish gastronomy is very strong. Is one of our main areas of activity. When we talk about wine and agricultural products, and you put them together and create cuisine, that's the best way to sell our products. And we're really working a lot in that regard. And I am happy to say that we see a lot of happy customers.
Definitely. We got one from the chat that says, really more like a follow-up question is who's the best contact? How do we reach out to Spanish companies that are interested in doing business in the U.S.? Is that something we just give them your email?
Yeah, of course.
Your contact
of course, do not hesitate. Just to let you know very quickly, there are 5 trade commissions, Spanish trade commissions in the U.S. So generally, we have a network of 100 offices throughout the world. Generally, one office, one country. Generally at the capital of that country. The U.S. is such a big and important to us market that we have 5 offices: Washington, New York, Chicago, Miami, and LA. So if you are not in the Southeast, some of my colleagues can help you out. But in any case, do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll make the connection.
Yeah, but you also, I think, Spain, you integrate the trade aspect into the diplomatic mission, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, or is it opposite to that?
We are part of the embassy.
Okay.
And we have the diplomatic condition when we're abroad. But I report to the Ministry of Industry.
Okay.
Or changes, sometimes it's Ministry of Economy, depending on how it's organized. But we report to the economic area, but we're part of the embassy, and we work together, of course, with our colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Couldn't do our job without them. We're very complementary.
Perfect. Anybody else here? You must have answered all the questions. It's crazy. That's a test. Yeah, sure.
Going back to piggybacking on that, connecting Atlanta, Georgia to businesses in Spain. I'm here with my colleague Daniel. We're both from Spain, Malaga and Valencia, and we actually we work in the academia. We work for Westminster, and we have 2 programs in Spain, one in Santiago, Camino de Santiago, and one in Valencia. And going back to what you were saying, connecting the youth who are our future to opportunities, possibilities, connecting study abroad to trade, the global economy. Whether we go to India, China, Spain, we match their interests and passions with corporations, businesses. We go to the headquarters of Porcelanosa, which we happen to have a showcase showroom here in Atlanta. So students as young as in middle school, they get a chance to see and connect with with the managing team there.
Wow, that's great.
So we are really passionate about that, and we love to explore possibilities. building that bridge from the economy to.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know we've got some representatives of the Robinson College of Business from Georgia State University on the call, and they're partners of ours as well. And I'm sure they will want to pick your brain about potential companies. They have master's programs. We're very experientially focused, so people can go and learn from companies. That's really the currency of these educational programs these days is actually interacting with people who are doing business. You would think that would be par for the course, but sometimes it's more theoretical and less experiential. So they really like to focus on that. Anybody going once? Okay, got Brian. All right, now we're waking up. Okay, go ahead.
Following on the theme of education, I was thinking of my wife attended a school in Madrid. It was co-sponsored by the German Chamber of Commerce and the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. Do any of the programs like that exist in the U.S. with Spain or other countries?
You said I didn't catch that.
Let me just repeat it so everybody.
Okay.
So he said his wife attended a program in Spain that was co-sponsored by the German Chamber and the Spanish Chamber there, and he was wondering if there are similar programs here in the U.S. Is that right?
It was a 2-year
professional training program.
University, sponsored by the two chambers.
Wow.
Bilingual business skills and specific industries that were of interest to both countries.
And I'm assuming there's a Spanish chamber in Miami.
There is a Spanish chamber in Miami. I'm not aware that currently there are any programs similar to that in place.
And I forgot to mention as well, we have the honorary consul for Spain, Ignacio Taboada, who's here with us as well. So y'all can also pester him here in Atlanta for anything related to Spain. I should have acknowledged you earlier on. I'm sorry about that. We had one question here, and go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Georgetta. I had a quick question. We talked a little bit about how we can connect with companies that want to do business in Atlanta. What about businesses from Atlanta that may want to do business in Spain? Do you have any advice or thoughts on that?
How should businesses in Atlanta that are looking at Spain, how should they go about carving out relationships?
Reach out to us. We're very glad to help. That is also our job. So we like to help U.S. companies in general to do business with our companies, and like I told you before, consider Spain as your gateway to Europe.
Yeah. I think we had. Is that Sarah? Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
My name is Sarah Marsky, and I lead a firm that specializes, Sarah Mar Group, we specialize in helping brands penetrate the U.S. Hispanic market,
Okay.
which is obviously 62 million strong and representing the 8th largest economy in the world. So from your perspective, how might companies from Spain expanding into the United States create synergies with that market, penetrate that market? Maybe they're perhaps more consumer-driven companies, but we'd love your perspective on that.
That's a great question. Let me repeat it real quick.
Well, actually,
can I repeat it?
Of course.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, it's weird. It's weird to be the intermediary here, but basically, Sarah was asking how should Spanish companies think about penetrating the U.S. Hispanic market, which is a major market.
Well, of course, it depends on the sector. Consumer goods, maybe it's more related to that approach. I know many Spanish companies do want to focus for starters in that market. It's easier, closer to them from a cultural point of view. But my advice to Spanish companies is to aim for the global U.S. market. So, of course, I mean, and no problem with the Hispanic market. But if you want to access the U.S. market, you should in general. Then there's different companies, different segments, but in general you should aim at all the community. But especially in consumer goods and also in food products for many companies, that is a strategy, and they are comfortable with that.
Anybody else? I thought I saw one more hand. Sure.
It's going to win the Euros.
We're not going to devolve into soccer just yet. Football. We'll wait till after. You can get him after the fact. Ignacio.
After so many many of the companies operate as U.S. corporations. It's very hard to find out
Mm.
who owns them and if they're Spanish, even though the majority of ownership, but they're in many different sectors. Is there one of the things that since we don't have a chamber of commerce because we are scattered all over the place, and sometimes I see networks on LinkedIn and other organizations trying to promote Spanish companies here in the United States that they're trying to connect to each other. Do you have a network or a organization or anything that you support that says if anybody wants to find out who has a person here in Atlanta or other parts of the United States that they can connect?
Mm.
Is there a network or organization that you support through the chat?
So are there networks that Spanish companies can connect to here locally to better link up?
There are two official chambers of commerce, Spanish chambers of commerce in New York and in Miami, as you know, and that is the main network of Spanish companies in the U.S. That I know of, that covers the whole country and that are connected. There are several initiatives from directors or C-suites from companies getting together in different sectors. That is happening right now. But as such, a network, global network of Spanish companies in the U.S., not that I'm aware of.
Mm. Well, maybe that's an opportunity.
It is.
We've, like I said, been doing these conversations with folks outside of Atlanta, and one of those was with the Consul General in Miami for Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of momentum in the last maybe year or two creating such a network for Italian companies. And the way they did it was they set up a Georgia chapter of the Miami-based Italy chamber.
There are many initiatives. There is an association of Spanish CEOs in the U.S., and there are the chambers of commerce. There is an association of Spanish scientists in the U.S. with different chapters. So there are many ways to connect, but a comprehensive with all of them, not that I know of.
But is there a list of these associations that you can?
Yeah, of course.
That you have that somebody composes it?
Yeah.
Like sometimes they come, listen, there is this group that is trying to reach me. Are they good?
Yeah.
Are they for real?
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Of course.
So we will, as many resources as you want to send us, we'll relay to everybody here, and also those who are tuned in virtually that registered and gave us their email. We'll send those out.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any last questions? Because I think other than that, we'll cut it off and we'll say goodbye to our virtual people, and we will mingle a bit before we leave. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Trade Commissioner.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We've been waiting to give someone an actual hand in person for a long time, so this is really good to be able to do that.
Right.
Thank you all for attending. Hope to see you at the next one. We will stay in touch. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.